Morning, everybody. Welcome back to The Point. Hope you guys are all doing well on this chilly Wednesday morning. And it is Wednesday. That's something I had to figure out. I was asked yesterday, what day is it? And I really didn't know. You go through Christmas, I was away, and now it's Wednesday. But every day kind of feels the same for the next week or so, just with the World Juniors ongoing and everything like that. It feels very it's a little weird, right now, the calendar. Until we get past, I guess when we get to 2023 in a few days, then there might be a new sense of regularity and where things are going. But I don't know if this is the same for all of you, but I feel today it's Wednesday, but it could be Tuesday. I normally have a feel for days of the week. I don't right now. They're all just kind of Groundhog Day. But Groundhog Day in a good sense, because we got hockey in the afternoons, we got Spangler Cup, we have NHL that returned last night, NBA. So lots of content, lots of great things happening in the sports world. On today's show, diving into the World Juniors from yesterday, attended my first game. We'll touch on that. I want to talk about the Pesky team from Switzerland who just keeps finding ways to win. We'll preview tonight's Canada versus Germany, second game of the tournament for Team Canada. Germany coming off a 1-0 loss yesterday to Team Sweden. We'll also chat about second half of the show, NHL second half of the season. Teams that you should ride on if you are gambling. So saying, let's ride. I like to make fun of Russell Wilson. Teams that you should stick with. Say, yes, you know what? That's a good bet. That's a team that's going to win some games in the second half of the season. And then the fade, of course, is the team that you throw away. The fade team is you see it, you hate it, you get rid of it. So second half of the show, NHL, second half of the year, these are teams that I have that you should ride and fade. I look at it as a gambling play. Also for postseason, these are teams that I think will make the playoffs. Obviously the fade, teams that might be in a playoff position right now that I don't expect to be moving forward. Tomorrow's show, Matt Wright will join me. We will chat about a number of different things. He's attending the World Juniors as well, so we'll touch on that. We'll preview the college football semifinals, which will be taking place on Saturday, which is New Year's Eve, I believe. Yes. So we'll chat about a number of things. We'll chat about his Patriots, who are losing games like they never do. So I want to get his thoughts from the home front. We're doing a show Friday, Big Money Friday. We'll preview everything going into the NFL weekend. Saturday, there will be a show. New Year's Eve, going to 2 games that day. But Saturday morning, prior to that, I'll be doing a show where I talk about the new year. Different predictions I have for 2023. So I'll get into, I'm going to vary. I'm going to talk UFC, NHL, might do some predictions on who wins the ultimate trophy, if quarterbacks switch teams. So I'm going to come up with some predictions. That'll be a Saturday morning podcast around this time. And then Sunday, I'll be doing a podcast as well, previewing the World Junior quarterfinal games. No show Monday, which is quarterfinal Monday. I'm going to the quarterfinals on Monday in Halifax. So I'll be traveling that morning. There's a games at 2:30, so I decided it'd be a little too tight a time. So no show Monday, but I'll preview the games Sunday. Tuesday, I know I'm going to have good Wi-Fi this time because I'm staying at a hotel. And I booked it. So that's done. So Tuesday, we'll be doing a show. Wednesday and Thursday, World Junior, all that will be covered extensively. So that's the schedule for the next week or so, which will be fast approaching. So it's Wednesday. The World Juniors are over next Thursday. It's a quick process, but that's the schedule for the podcast moving forward. Before we get to the World Juniors, I was at the game yesterday, and it comes up on my phone that J.J. Watt, the great defensive tackle, formerly of the Houston Texans, now of the Arizona Cardinals, announced his retirement following the final 2 games of this season. He played his final home game of his career Sunday night, Christmas Day night, and in great fashion. He had 6 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and he looked like vintage J.J. Watt. He's had a couple pretty productive seasons in Arizona, but J.J. Watt at the age of 33, he'll be 34 in March, is retiring from the NFL. I think we forget just how good J.J. Watt was. And I'm saying prime Houston Texans J.J. Watt. He was as good or better than Nick Bosa. He was better than Micah Parsons. We see these great pass rushers now. J.J. Watt was a game wrecker of game wreckers. He was a first overall pick that was a hit. He's had a career of success and then overcoming. He's had 3 different back surgeries. He's had neck surgeries twice. J.J. Watt is just a superhuman type figure, not just because his physique rivals Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he's this really endearing guy with massive muscles, and you look at him and you're just instantly afraid. But you hear stories of him showing up to workouts at 2:00 in the morning, and guys checking in for the day, and he's through his second workout already. The Watt family has been the demonstration. I'm losing the word and how I want to describe them. They have been the mantra. They have been the design of football. TJ, Derek, JJ. All 3 brothers have at least made 1 Pro Bowl. TJ and JJ making multiple. TJ and JJ have both won an NFL Defensive Player of the Year award. They are a family full of great athletes. J.J. Watt, if you did not know this, wanted to be an NHL player growing up. He played hockey. I can't imagine with that frame how he would skate. The only thing I do know is I would be completely terrified of that man coming down if I was a winger. He wanted to be a hockey player. So did TJ. Unfortunately, I think their bodies were too big. Their musculars were too bulky, and it didn't work out for them. But they found football. J.J. Watt went to Central Michigan initially. He played a few years there. Then he transferred to University of Wisconsin as he got more and more acclaim. And ultimately, he goes number 1 in the NFL draft to the Houston Texans. I want to list off some of the accolades of J.J. Watt because they're incredibly impressive and they're worth mentioning. So this is his career. J.J. Watt's a 3-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year, 2012, 2014, and 2015. Only 2 players have ever done that. The other one is Lawrence Taylor. Not bad. He's a Walter Payton Man of the Year award in 2017. He's a 5-time first-team All-Pro. That is more significant than the Pro Bowl because everybody gets the Pro Bowl. If you are an All-Pro, that means you are the best at your position. That means you're the best in your conference. You are damn good. 2012 to 2015, complete dominance. And in 2018, coming off of neck surgery, he was an All-Pro. 2-time second-team All-Pro, 2014, 2018. 5-time Pro Bowler, 2012 to 2015, 2018. 2-time NFL sacks leader, 2012 and 2015. NFL forced fumbles co-leader in 2018. And he's an NFL 2010s All-Decade team. J.J. Watt is a first ballot Hall of Famer. It was funny, actually, yesterday the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame tweeted out that his first year of eligibility is in 2028. They did that for a reason. They don't just tweet that out for any player that retires. That's a fringe guy. J.J. Watt is going into Canton. He will have a bust. And I wouldn't be shocked by the end of TJ's career, he's joining his brother there. We remember quarterbacks. We think about skill position players. But if you think about it, some of the most unsung heroes of teams are D tackles like J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt's never been to a Super Bowl. He never He never will. He's finishing his career. The Arizona Cardinals are not going to make the playoffs. But to me, that doesn't change the fact that at one time, he was considered the best player in football. He was that dominant. He could not be contained. But to put this into perspective on how good this family is, J.J. Watt was a force stopping the run, but he also led the NFL in sacks in 2 separate seasons. And he was a force at getting to the quarterback as well. He had a season with over 20 sacks, but yet his brother is tied for the most sacks in a single NFL season. TJ, 22 and a half, with Michael Strahan. That's how good this family is. It's like the Stahl family on steroids. Eric, Jordan, and Mark will all play over 1,000 games in the National Hockey League. But are they as dominant as the Watt family? No. Doesn't change the fact that it's a great legacy and that's a great story in the world of hockey. But to have 2 brothers that are dominant that could go into the Hall of Fame together is a truly remarkable thing. JJ, congratulations. He's married to a pro soccer player in the NWSL. He has a 2-month-old son who went to the game on Saturday. Very cute kid. And, you've had a lot of surgeries, but you seem to be healthy now. Go enjoy your life. To play until you're 33 at that position is rare. But you'll be in Canton. You're a young man. You got the rest of your life in front of you. Lots of money. You played in Houston. You played in Houston and you played in Arizona. That's a dream. And I'm only talking about weather because if you know anything about me, that's all I care about. Congratulations, JJ, on a great career. That one did come as a bit of a surprise to me. He's playing great football. I thought he had a couple years left in him. I thought he might sign with another team and see what could happen, but I completely understand his decision and I respect it. So as I was reading this news, I was at the Slovakia-Finland game yesterday morning. And it was, first off, I was really encouraged, and it was great to see the crowd for that game. It's a 12 o'clock noon game. I didn't know what to expect. And people are attending these events. We saw last night Czechia and Austria. The crowd got into it. It was a 9-0 win for Czechia. But the crowd never lost their sense of passion. They still played with energy. And I love what the crowds are doing, that the rinks are being full. This is the time of year where this is the first World Juniors we've gotten in 20 years here in the Maritimes. Who knows when we're going to get it again. But we got 2 beautiful facilities with the Avenir Center in Moncton and the Scotiabank, or as I like to call it, the Metro Center in Halifax. This is a perfect location for it. People love hockey down here. And I'm really happy seeing the amount of people that were there. I'm used to going to the summer event where there was no lineup to get in. It was just, okay, come on in, sit wherever you want. That wasn't the case yesterday. So I'm happy with the attendance, the fans, and ultimately the hockey's been superb. The hockey's been fantastic. And I'm watching Slovakia-Finland yesterday, and there's a few players that jump off the board. The Tampa Bay Lightning prospect Vasainen for Finland, first of all, he's a hulk of a man. He's on TV timeouts, he's standing next to his teammates. They look like, me standing next to J.J. Watt with his bulging muscles next to my baby pythons. But he is, to me, he's their best player. I love that he's a great skater for how big he is. I touched on yesterday, he has an ability to always be around the puck which that isn't something that you should just take for granted. That's a skill in and of itself. That's something that takes a lot of work. So he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink for the Finns. But they got a lot of Finland lost their first game, and I said yesterday, just don't panic. Finland's fine. They got a great team. They'll figure it out. And at times, they played poor hockey yesterday. The first 10 minutes, they had the puck the entire time. The Slovaks were on their heels. They looked like they were completely befuddled, did not know what they were doing. But you take some time. In the last 8 to 10 minutes of that first period, Slovakia put it on them, and ultimately they scored a power play goal late in the first period to tie it at 1. But they took their foot off the gas. And when you're not forechecking and you're not as skilled as the team, in front of you, you need to play really well defensively or just work harder. And they didn't. I felt the coaching was poor, where they didn't have a great start to the game. They didn't have a great plan on how to counterattack Finland, who have a number of great skaters, including Brad Lambert, who scored a beauty of a goal. But I'll break down both teams. For Finland, Väinänen, Oliver Kapanen, their captain's another really sneaky good player. But I wanted to watch a few players in particular yesterday, just as a quasi scout. I do this. I am not a scout. I don't get paid for it, but I do think I have an eye for talent. And I wanted to see Joakim Kemmel, who was a first-round pick of the Columbus Blue Jackets 2 years ago, 7th overall pick. And I like his game. I thought he was a little invisible in the first game, but my player comp, reads out. He scored he's got maybe the best release in this tournament. Juracek's got a great one for the Czechs, but Kemmel gets the puck on his stick. It's not there long, and it's in the back of the net. I mean, they gave him way too much space on the third goal for Finland yesterday, and he just blew it past the goaltender. But Joakim Kemmel's got a great shot. He's a physical player, and maybe defense is not the first thought on his mind. So my player comp for Joakim Kemmel is Alex Ovechkin. He is not as, I'd say when Alex Ovechkin broke into the league, and Joakim Kemmel's not as big. But if you watch OV play, there are times when he is going to take shifts off. When it's not an offensive zone shift, he's not as preoccupied on the game. He's standing there waiting for a chance to get into a scoring position. I think Joakim Kemmel has those type of tendencies. He likes to engage physically through a number of big hits yesterday. As I pointed out, he scored a big goal. He likes to provide offense. He's not going to be the best distributor on the team, but Kemmel, if you put him in the right position, he plays on the power play, he's got a big shot, he's clearly a confident kid. He has some Ovechkin-like abilities. He's not going to be Alex Ovechkin. No, he's a unicorn. He's not going to score 802 goals in the NHL. That's not what I'm saying. But I do see that was my player comp to watching him in person, because I liked the intensity he brought, his shot. He's got something about him, and he went high in the draft, and I understand why Columbus took him there, because I think they need to work on him a little bit. They need to work on him being more of a active participant, throughout the entire game, not just when he wants to be involved, which is a tricky proposition, because you need everybody to be bought in. You need him to want to do that. You need get his teammates to prop him up a little bit when you have certain players that play that way. But I like Joakim Kemmel. I thought he played very well. Väinänen, as I pointed out, he's another, to me, he's Finland's best player. For Finland, I would say their biggest problem, and why they may not go that deep in this tournament, is their defense. They have a hard time clearing the puck out of their own zone. If you look at the shot totals yesterday, you'd think, well, 5-2, that doesn't sound like a close game. I thought it was a pretty tight game. Like, Slovakia was in it. They allowed a bad goal, just a bad turnover at one. It was 4-2, and then Brad Lambert scored the 5-2 goal to put it out of reach. But this wasn't a game where it was a complete drubbing. Slovakia has some good players, and I'll touch on that in a second. But Finland has to work on their breakouts out of their own zone. That's one thing for them, is just make shifts easier. Continue to use your physicality, continue to play that game, but forwards come back into your zone and help out your defense. And also their penalty kill. Slovakia went 2 for 3 on the power play yesterday, and they got two really good units. Michael Repchik scored both goals for the Slovaks. He's on their second power play unit. But I like Slovakia's power play structure. They got two really good units, and that's something that could keep them alive in this tournament and at least promote them to the quarterfinal berth where they can avoid relegation. The other player I had wanted to see, because I had never seen him live, I hadn't seen much of him, was Simon Nemec, who was selected second overall last year by the New Jersey Devils. And this was, as you remember, surprising pick, kind of came out of nowhere, and he's the captain for Team Slovakia. And if you're watching the game tonight when they play the United States, he is number 7. He is an interesting player. I didn't think he had a great game yesterday. He plays a ton because you're on a team that has less skill. So he's playing practically every second shift. He's on the power play. He's on the penalty kill. Plays in all facets. He's got a big shot, which I didn't think he had as big a shot as he does. But he's got a good shot from the back end. He's a sneaky good skater. To me, yesterday, he just didn't do enough on offense. As I said, Slovakia does have some good players. They got a youngster who's 17 years old, Dvorsky, who I think he's one of their best players already. Petrovsky on offense is a good player as well. But Simon Nemec is going to have to be one of their more important stars. He's going to have to play big in some of these moments. And yes, he's playing in all facets of the game. But to me, he needs to be more involved, join the offense, join the rush, pinch down, see an opportunity where you can have an impact. Because too many of their forwards just didn't yesterday. Again, 2 power play goals, but you're going to have to score 5-on-5 in this tournament. The referees aren't going to bail you out, because you watch how the games are reffed in Moncton. They're not calling much. Halifax, it's different. Canada game, there was a lot of penalties. The Czechia-Austria game even the Switzerland-Germany game, it's a tale of 2 rinks where the referees are heavily involved in Halifax. In Moncton, their whistles are really away. The Slovakia-Finland game yesterday was really physical. There's a few hits that were borderline. They didn't call them. Love it. But you need to know that. If you see how the game's officiated, watch the other games. You're not seeing many calls. You need to score 5-on-5. So I think Nemec has a lot of really good qualities. He's a modern defenseman. He's a guy that is going to try to do more offensively than care about his numbers defensively, in my mind. I'm going to the Slovakia-United States game this evening, so I'll get to see him again. And I'm curious to see how Slovakia plays. Because obviously this is their second game in as many days. They had they're playing the 2 toughest teams of their group in the first 2 games, which I think is actually an advantage for them, because you get that out of the way. Then you focus on the 2 teams you really have to beat. They're not expected to beat Finland. They're not expected to beat the United States, but you want to play well. Yesterday, you lose the game, but I still think you take some positives from that. It's 5-2. You gave them a good run. Shot totals were close. A few things go your way. Maybe the game flips on its axis a little bit. So I think you can take some positives from that game. But looking at the players I wanted to go see, they were very good. Brad Lambert scored a beauty of a goal. He's starting to skate well. He's starting to find his game a little more. So that's a positive sign for Finland. But I look at this group in general in Moncton, which is United States, Finland, Switzerland, Latvia, and Slovakia. Obviously, you think Finland and the United States are the two best teams, which I still think they are, even though Switzerland beat Finland in the first game. It's close. Like, these smaller countries are getting better. Obviously, Austria is the outlier, where they get blown out 11-0 and 9-0 respectively in their first two games. But other than Austria, look at Latvia. They lose 5-2 to the United States. Latvia lost 2-1 to Sweden in the quarterfinal this summer. Switzerland beat Finland. You're seeing even the German team, who got outshot badly yesterday, I don't think they're that bad of a team. I thought they played quite well. They had over 30 shots against Sweden. These smaller countries are getting better. They're starting to produce greater talent. Look at the last NHL draft. Juraj Slavkovsky and Simon Nemec go 1-2. They're both from Slovakia, not from the US, not from Canada. So you're starting to produce really good talent. So I like seeing that. These games are really close. Some of these small, and we'll pivot. I'll get to the German game in a bit, but we'll stay in Moncton. The Switzerland-Latvia game last evening, if you didn't see this game, this was a fun game. A back and forth affair. And Latvia, they fight. That's how I would describe them. They don't give up. They don't give in. They are a really fun bunch to me because they are not as talented, but Burzins, their goaltender, has played really well in the first two games. They do have some nice talent. Where I look at, Don's Lockmelis, he scored a beauty first goal of the game for Latvia. But what I love about Latvia is their compete. They blocked 25 shots against Switzerland. And Tilio Biasca had to have been frustrated. He had 8 shots blocked last night. That's the captain for Team Switzerland. Latvia they frustrate you. And at one point, I thought they're going to win the game because they had a 2-1 lead at the end of the second period. Switzerland tied the game with 1 minute and 58 seconds remaining in the game, and ultimately, Switzerland wins it in the gimmick. But the game was fun. A back and forth affair. Both teams had good opportunities. And for Switzerland, you play your first two games, you play Finland, and you play Latvia. You expect a win out of those two. You're expecting to beat Latvia, of course. But both games go to extra time. You beat Finland in overtime. You beat Latvia in the gimmick. And Switzerland, they find a way. And they got some players. Leon Bieskil is a big defenseman for Switzerland. He played 26 minutes in the opener. He played over 27 yesterday. He is one of the best players in this tournament. Any team. He's got to be 6'5". He moves beautifully. I'll be watching him tomorrow night. I'm interested to see him live. He moves extremely well. He's got a good shot. He's got great hockey sense. And Switzerland doesn't have a guy that you look at and you go, that's a first-round draft pick. But Biaskill on the back end could be. He is that good. But what I'm impressed with Switzerland, and I pointed this out yesterday when they beat Finland, they stick to their game plan. They have bought into that coaching. They have bought into, everybody's favorite word, culture. And it's working. Because, they were a more aggressive team yesterday against Latvia, of course, because they're more talented. But when they play the United States tomorrow night, I know what they'll do, because they'll do what they did against Finland. They'll trust their process. They'll trust what worked, and they'll follow it. Sometimes you need to know that you're not as good as the other team. That doesn't mean you're not going to win, but you need to know that you don't have as much talent, you don't have as much going for you as the others. For instance, I don't have as much going for me as Chris Hemsworth. He's a better looking guy. He's chiseled. He's got a lot going for him. A lot more than me. So I need to know my lane. I need to know my avenues, right? So that's just an observation that I made myself. That he's got a little more going for him than I do. And guess what? That doesn't mean I still can't do well on the lady front, but he might do better than me. I think he's married, but you get my point. So sometimes you just need to know that you're not as good as your opponent. You're not as good as the team in front of you. But if you can play a certain way and you can develop a game plan to make it work, that doesn't mean you're not going to win. Just means you have to do it a little bit differently than maybe the game you played. For Biaska, you have to play a little differently than you would in Halifax, where they're dominating the QMJHL and they're having a ton of success. But that game was a ton of fun. These lesser nations, these are fun games. As I said, this tournament's it's more close than in recent years. Latvia brought a good team in the summer. They got to the quarterfinal. They finished 7th. I think it's going to be tougher for them this year. Their game against Slovakia will be the important one, because Switzerland's going to get through. Because as we look at the standings, as we currently sit here, Switzerland leads the group. Well, technically, Finland leads the group because they have 1 win and 1 overtime loss. Switzerland has 2 overtime wins. So they have 4 points. Finland also has 4 points. United States has only played 1 game. They got Slovakia tonight. They have 3 points. Latvia has 1. Slovakia has 0. But that Slovakia-Latvia game is going to be the big game of the tournament. It's going to be the most important one. That the loser of that game will be going to relegation. We figured that one out already. I wouldn't rule Latvia out of that game. I think Slovakia is the better team. But Latvia definitely has a good squad they brought here. They're a tough out. They're a tough, frisky team. But like I said yesterday, look out for Switzerland because they know what they're doing, and I like the way that they're playing. Germany, Sweden. This game was a metaphor for the tournament. This is my tournament overview. Through 2 days, watching a lot of games, here's my big thoughts on this tournament. Skill is great. Goals are better. We see around this tournament the Michigan look. The great passes on the power play. Shooting the puck from 25 feet out, trying to go bar down. That's great. It's great when it goes in, but when it doesn't, you look like a schmuck. Or if you try the Michigan and it doesn't work, then people cheer, but then your teammates kind of hate you. Look at Dylan Gunther. Sweden had over 40 shots yesterday. They could have had 80 against Germany. Enough of these shots from the perimeter, and this includes Team Canada, get the puck to the dirty areas. Think about the best goal scorers in the league. Alex Ovechkin, Austin Matthews. Where are they scoring goals? In tight. How many highlight reel goals has Austin Matthews scored this year? Not that many. Scoring them all in the power play, scoring them a foot from the net. Get the puck on net. Create rebounds that will lead to goals. Slovakia scored both goals on the power play off rebounds a foot away from the net. It's just this skill, the overpassing by Sweden yesterday. Sometimes it's just nice to get the puck to the front of the net and get in the crease, try to whack the puck in the back. They all count. This isn't a skills competition. Score the goal. Skill is great. Goals are better. You can have all the skill in the world. If you're not putting any in the back of the net, what's your skill worth? That's my tournament overview. So far is just simplicity. And I don't know if it's just an ego thing or these kids wanting to put on more of a show, but whack a puck home. Sweden scored their one goal of the game was at the end of the first period. It was a whack off a rebound. It found its way through the netminder into the back of the net, through Quap into the back of the net. But if I'm coaches, I'm preaching this. Get some bodies to the front. Just shoot. Create a rebound. They're getting put out there. Whack them in the back of the net. Enough of this over skill, this could be a problem where you will see a highlight reel goal in the NHL and you want to try to do it. You want to try to do the Michigan. You want to try to do an Austin Matthews bar down wrister. You're not those guys. And guess what? They're not doing it every night either. Alex Ovechkin scoring empty net goals. His goal to tie Gordie Howe was a foot away from the net. He whacked it in. If the best goal scorer in the world is going to the front of the net, fighting for net front position against a defenseman, then guess what? You can get your ass on the block and try to get a goal from there. It is not beneath you. That's how a team will win. That's the teams that embrace that will win this tournament. Kent Johnson's game-winning goal this summer, where was it? Right in front of the net. That's where these goals are scored. Enough of this playing from the perimeter. Stop watching Artemi Panarin game tape and get your ass into the crease. Score some goals. For Germany, who play Canada this evening at the Metro Center, they were thoroughly outplayed yesterday, even though I thought at times they were in the game. But Quap, their netminder, was fantastic. He made 40-plus saves. He did everything he could for Germany to keep them in the game. One goal with 19 seconds left of the first period was the difference in this game. For Germany, you look at it and you say, okay, we have to beat Austria. In a perfect world, you could beat the Czechia. Well, that's not going to happen. But that's your outlook for this tournament. Get to the quarterfinal, see what you can do. You got a good goaltender. But for Sweden, I think one of the biggest, through 2 games for them, they haven't allowed a goal. That's interesting to me. You did play the 2 worst teams, but Lindblom has back-to-back shutouts. He started both games. They have a good goaltender, and that might be something that's just a big development here. To me, he's looked like the best goaltender in the tournament thus far. Sukanik is very good for the Czechia, so those two could rival each other, and the 2 teams play each other tomorrow in a big afternoon game. But for Sweden to have a goaltender that could be above the rest of the tournament is a big deal, because I look at the rest. The U.S. is still debating between Trey Augustine and Caden Maburko, so there isn't a defined number 1. Canada had to pull their goaltender in the first game of the tournament. Finland is still up in the air. So the teams that we look at that could win the gold medal don't have stability in net. Sweden has their number 1 goaltender. He's defined himself. He played the first 2 games of the tournament. I don't know why he wouldn't play the next 2 against the toughest opponents. So that's a good development for them. Because through 2 games, I've seen a lot of good things. Boston Bruins prospect, Fabian Lysell. What a crafty kid. I mean, he's playing in the American League already, and we're seeing a lot of these American League kids are playing well. Juracek's playing really well for the Czechs. Thought he had a good game last night. Lysell for Boston is playing well. Simon Nemec is playing in the American Hockey League for the New Jersey Devils. So, yeah, I like the player a lot. He's the future of the Boston Bruins for sure, because I think he'll be in the NHL sooner rather than later. But between Lysell and Isaac Rosen and Bystat, who's a sneaky good player who's got some high-end skill and also got a little bit of a bite to his game. For Sweden, you win your 2 games. My only thing is 12 goals in 2 games. That looks good. 11 of them came against Austria. Get pucks to the front of the net. Do what you can do to score some goals, because your tournament only gets tougher from here. You got Czechia tomorrow. You got Canada on Saturday. You win those 2 games, you win your group. And you're in a good position to run the table to get to the gold medal game. Unfortunately for Sweden, they seem to come into roadblocks a lot of the time. But you'd be in a really good position. Potentially get a Slovakia or get a Latvia in the quarterfinal. You'll take that every day of the week. But I like the look of Sweden. I looked at them in the pre-tournament. I didn't love their game. I'm interested. I think Czechia is a little better than Sweden. I think Czechia has a better team. I think there's better overall talent on Team Sweden with Lysell and Rosen and some of the names I pointed out. But I look at the way Czechia just plays with Kulic, Juracek, Sladislas Fossil, who's currently leading the tournament in points. He's got 5 points in 2 games as a defenseman. David Spacek is second in the league, is second in the tournament in points with 4. They're getting production from the back end. They're starting to get production up front. Barabanek, probably pronouncing that wrong, formerly of the Charlottetown Islanders, produced offensively last night. He had a goal, the first goal of the game for Czechia. They have a lot to like about that team. They do have offensive flair. I think they're run by their defense, and they have a really good goaltender. But Sweden, Czech Republic will be a fun game tomorrow afternoon. That's 2:30 in Halifax. So that's a huge game of the tournament because both teams are undefeated, and Czechia's already gotten by Canada. Czechia beats Sweden tomorrow. They finish with Germany. Czechia could win the group easily because it wouldn't matter how Canada does. Czechia goes 4-0. They're through. They're through to the court. And Canada and Sweden would be playing for the second spot, actually. So interesting development there. But fun game. I like some of Sweden's play. They've looked good. Tonight, Canada meets Germany. Canada's second game of the tournament. I think Canada will win big tonight. I mentioned Germany 1-0 game yesterday. They battled their asses off. But that takes a lot out of you. I think they're going to be tired tonight. Their goaltender, I imagine they'll go with Kwap again. But maybe not. I mean, he made 40-plus saves yesterday. The guy's got to be a little worn out this morning. But he's your best option, so you will go to that. For Canada tonight, it's about cleaning up. I mentioned cleaning up the problems yesterday. They got a wake-up call. That's the best thing that could have happened to them. I think if we see a slow night, we should see the change to that second line. As I said, I would remove Dylan Guenther from it, and I would put Joshua Waugh on that line with Adam Fantelli and Logan Stankoven, because that line should be better than it has been. Zach Dean, not suspended or anything after being kicked out of the game, so he'll be back into the lineup. But you're playing teams, you're playing a team like Germany tonight. I want to see defensemen really start to take some up. Use your opportunities, jump up into the play. Brant Clark is one of those guys for me. I think Canada has a defenseman on every line that can be a game breaker. Brant Clark, Zellweger, these two in particular. And also, I really like Hines. To me, he's a guy that will only continue to get more minutes for Canada. He's got a really good sense for the game. I thought he played really well in the opener. So I'm looking just to see how they pivot from their opening night game. When it comes to the box, when it comes to how they approach their opponent, come out the first 10 minutes the way you did, but don't let your foot off the gas pedal. Continue to shoot pucks, continue to be aggressive. That would be my plan of attack if I am Team Canada, if I'm Dennis Johnson tonight. But I expect a big effort. I think Shane Wright had 2 points in the first game. Bedard had a goal. I think Bedard gets at least 2 to 3 points tonight. I expect the same for Shane Wright. Brendan Othman get 1 or 2 goals. I think that first line is a big night. And this next 2 nights are confidence nights. You're playing teams that you should beat quite easily. We've seen the way Austria's played in their first 2 games. That should be a pretty devastating loss tomorrow night for them. Find confidence and find lines that can play together. Because the next two games are figuring out what works. That game is not the game to do that is not against Sweden. It's against Germany and it's against Austria. So figure out what works for your team. Figure out what is the best course of action. Who fits well together, who should be on the same line, so there's no question marks going in to that huge game on New Year's Eve. Today, we got Slovakia, United States in Moncton at 5 o'clock. We have Canada, Germany, 7:30 in Halifax. Only two games today, but both are interesting. And we'll break it down tomorrow with the results of both games. I'm looking forward to seeing the United States live this evening, so that should be fun. To the National Hockey League, the NHL ended their hiatus last night, which was, a few days for Christmas through Boxing Day. Players get the time off, but now they're back into the swing of things. And two big pieces of news yesterday, NHL-wise, when it comes to injuries, and they both involve defensemen. I'll start with John Carlson, who on the night that Ovi broke the goal-scoring record, took a puck to the face, left the game, and Peter Laviolette came out yesterday and said that he is going to miss significant time, more than the allocated 7 days, and it could be, a long-term injury. I mean, Washington's just been snake bit this season when it comes to injuries. Nick Backstrom had hip surgery. Tom Wilson hasn't played a game all year. TJ Oshie missed the first 2 months. Dmitry Orlov's been in and out of the lineup with injuries. Kuznetsov's been in and out. Of course, Ovechkin's healthy because he's an Ox. But you're a team that's depleted. You're not the 2018 Caps where you have a lot of depth, and that's part of the big reason why you won. Your defense core is shaky as it is, and you lose John Carlson for a significant period of time. And to his credit, John Carlson's been one of the most consistent defensemen in the NHL over the last 5-6 years. He's going to get you, 20 goals, 65 to 80 points a season. That's John Carlson for you. He's just steady. He's really good on the power play. But, in saying that, Washington wins their first game. They've been on a heater lately. Right towards Christmas, they kept it going, winning 4-0 in New York at Madison Square Garden last night. So, for Washington, I didn't put them on my ride or fade list, which we'll get to in a bit, because I can't figure this team out. I like parts of it. Obviously, I love Ovechkin. Connor Sheary's been a really good add to that first line. Tom Wilson should be back at some point. It could be as soon as, a couple weeks. It looks like Nick Backstrom's also going to return this season, which I did not expect. If you can get Carlson back, they do have Darcy Kemper, who won a Stanley Cup last year. Charlie Lindgren's been very good in relief of Darcy Kemper. His first true season in the National Hockey League, coming off a trip to the Calder Cup final last year in the American League. They're a tough team to gauge. To me, they're just they have Marcus Johansson there, and to me, this is a team that doesn't know what they're going to be yet. Are they going to be a seller, or are they going to be a buyer at the trade deadline? You have Alex Ovechkin. I expect that the team will be looking to add to this roster. Washington and Pittsburgh are the same. They never want to lose. They want to continue to be relevant. They want to continue to make the playoffs, be in a position to at least sell to their fans, sell to their players that we are a Stanley Cup contender. To me, Washington is not a Stanley Cup contender. I think Pittsburgh's going to do very well in the Metropolitan Division. I don't view them as a Stanley Cup contender yet. I still think they're missing some pieces on that team that will be hard to pick up with the way their salary cap is, keeping Malkin and Letang on those legacy contracts. But kudos to Washington for overcoming the injuries. This could be a write-off year. You have Ovechkin under contract. You just say, well, we'll miss the playoffs this year. We'll get a high draft pick. We'll recalibrate, we'll reboot, and come back next year. And you're in a Metropolitan Division that's loaded with pretty good hockey teams. And this could go south for them. But I juxtapose Washington to the New York Rangers, and it's night and day. The New York Rangers are playing with no passion. They're playing with no intensity. And you're just coming off a break, and they look lethargic last night. The whole team looked like a bunch of Artemi Panarins that didn't want to go into the corner. They didn't want to work for the puck. They just wanted to hang out on the perimeter. The New York Rangers have the potential to be one of the most disappointing teams of the last decade in the NHL. There's a long way to go here. I get that, but they have been lethargic all season long. I thought this team would be great. I thought they'd win the Stanley Cup. And I still think they can. But the Rangers are a different story for me from the Washington Capitals, who need to wait and see, who need to play the month of January, see how it goes, and then gauge what you want to do. The Rangers, you are in win-now mode. You have Kreider locked up. You have Adam Fox locked up. You have Shesterkin locked up. You got all these you signed Trocheck in the offseason. You have him. You have a new coach that all he wants to do is win. They need to act now. You look at if you're not following Chicago Blackhawks, they are just a complete mess. They're suck. They're no good. They're losing. They want to get the top pick in the draft. They want to get Connor Bedard. I can't blame them. But the Rangers need to start looking around the league and make the first trade. Make the first trade that opens it up. You don't have to wait till March, and quite frankly, they can't wait till March because teams around them are winning while they lose. The Islanders are going to pass them. Pittsburgh's ahead of them. Washington's ahead of them. They need to make some moves to make sure that they are a playoff team at the very least. They have too many guys that are just not great NHL players yet. Capo Caco, Alexis Lafreniere, Philip Hedl, Vitaly Kravtsov. These are all young players that potentially could be good. Potentially. But they are not great players yet. The Rangers have just young players that are trying to find their way, but are not high caliber yet. But I do think these four players have value. You're not going to trade all of them, but you can throw them in a package for a Patrick Kane. You can put them in a package for a Timo Meier. You can put them in a package. You look at bad teams around the league. Could you get a good player from the Anaheim Ducks, potentially? There are a lot of bad teams in the league right now. Teams that know they're out of it, know they're not going to make the playoffs, and are ready to sell. The Connor Bedard sweepstakes are open. This year is different from others. It's different where you don't know what the first overall pick is going to be. You know you're getting a great player in Connor Bedard. It's not a Heischer draft. It's the same thing in the NBA right now. Victor Wembanyama, he looks like a superstar. It isn't about, okay, who are we going to take number one? It's obvious. So for the New York Rangers, the most disappointing team for me of the first, Christmas here, going into 2023, easily the most disappointing team because I expected them to be really good. I expected them to compete with the best of the Metropolitan Division. I expected them to compete with the best teams in the NHL. But Alexis Lafreniere did not carry that same energy, that same oomph he had from the playoffs last year into the regular season. Hasn't come. K'Andre Miller has hit a bit of a skid. Shesterkin is not stopping the pucks that he did last year. They need to move now. They need to make trades. Not wait a month and a half. Do it now because you need to worry about making the playoffs. Because to me, Pittsburgh is by far a better team than them right now. The Islanders are in that mix. You got Washington. This is where they sit. The New York Rangers are 11 points back of the Carolina Hurricanes, who are first in the Metropolitan Division. The New York Rangers are only 3 points back in New Jersey, but New Jersey is 2 games in hand. And they've lost 2 of the 3 games against New Jersey this season. They're tied with the Islanders. They're behind Pittsburgh. They're behind Washington. Enough of this just throw guys in and hope for the best. They need to do something because this team has the potential to win the Stanley Cup. You made the conference final last year. It's not about falling back now. It's about building on it and getting back to that place. It's hard. It's tough. It's why teams don't get there often, but the good teams do. So for the Rangers, my advice, act now. The other injury was to Torrey Krug, who's on long-term injury reserve, and he's out at least 6 weeks for the St. Louis Blues. Torrey Krug is a great power play player. He can move the puck. He's not my favorite defenseman. I thought the money he got from St. Louis was a big overpay, getting over $7 million a season from the Boston Bruins after the 2019 Cup run. And I think so far that take has been pretty accurate. He's been injury prone. St. Louis hasn't had a whole lot of success. And boy, howdy, would they love to have that money off their books so they could do something. My segment today is, are you going to teams that you should ride on going into the second half of the year and teams that you should fade? I'm going to mix them in throughout the back half of the show here because I also want to talk about a few other teams. But I'm going to start with a fade team, and that's the St. Louis Blues. It pains me. I thought I predicted Rangers St. Louis to get to the Stanley Cup final. But both teams missed the playoffs, which would be embarrassing for me, I will add. But this is my show, and I'll admit when I'm right and admit when I'm wrong. I might have both teams missed the playoffs potentially. I think the Rangers will find their way. I don't see it for St. Louis. I don't see a path because the Central Division is loaded, and I look at this St. Louis team, and the pieces aren't fitting well together anymore. I thought they could find that 2019 magic, and they nearly beat Colorado last year. Maybe that's why I bet on them again, because I feel like if they were healthy and Binnington didn't get hurt, they would have beat Colorado in that second round. They were up 2-1 in that series, if you recall. But that's a whole other offseason. Players get older. Ryan O'Reilly is not the same player as he was. I still think he's an effective player, but he's not a first-line center. Torrey Krug is constantly hurt. Jordan Binnington is the most erratic goaltender in the NHL. Gives up 5 goals to the Toronto Maple Leafs last night. But the most painful thing for last night's game is you give up 5 goals to the Leafs, none by Austin Matthews. If I'm looking at that as St. Louis perspective, I'm mad about that because the best goal scorer, you could argue, in the world didn't score a goal, and yet you still lost the game. That's tough. But I'm fading St. Louis because I don't trust their goaltending. I felt like they should have made a coaching change months ago, which they did not do, just to try to find something quick and see if he could rebirth it. Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly are UFAs at the end of the year. Get something for them. Maybe Craig Berube won't want to return as head coach if he sees that it's a rebuild coming, or Doug Armstrong might just say, you know what? We want a new voice. You want to cup with us here. You'll get another job, but this isn't going to work right now. Could very well be the case in St. Louis where they have irreconcilable. Not even going to try to say it, even though I said it this morning, just to practice that word. Now I want to say it, but I'm going to say it wrong again. No, sorry, not doing it. Not doing it. Not happening today. But St. Louis, just too many square pegs in round holes. Just not enough. It's not enough there. Tarasenko will likely be Ryan O'Reilly will be traded. You're not going to trade Krug. Parayko is your captain. You're not trading him. Even if you are going to rebuild or retool, I don't think you want to get rid of him. But I look at the Central. Minnesota's a good team. They just continue to find ways to win. They're getting really good goaltending all of a sudden. Winnipeg's lost 3 in a row. I still think Winnipeg's a pretty good team. I don't think St. Louis is 8 back of Winnipeg right now for second. Dallas doesn't lose. Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, Joe Pavelski, Jamie Benn's got 14 goals quietly. He's having a resurgent season. They got a strong back end. They got one of the best goaltending tandems in the NHL, and Jake Ottinger and Wedgwood. I don't see a crack for St. Louis there. They also got to overcome Colorado. But that's one of my fade teams in St. Louis. My other fade team is Nashville. The Nashville Predators stink. They have 33 points in 33 games. Oy vey. They are not going to make the playoffs. They made the playoffs last year. UC Saros hasn't had a great year. Every player who had a career year, I didn't have Nashville making the playoffs, so one for the home team. Matt Duchene, down year. Who could have saw that coming? Ryan Johansson, down year after a career year. Who could have seen that coming? Philip Forsberg's actually playing pretty well after getting a big contract. But again, he can't do it all himself. Their back end is not as strong. You used to have all kinds of depth on the back end. Ryan Suter, Shea Weber, all these great pieces. They're all gone. Now you got Dante Fabro, an older Roman Josi. Matthias Ekholm was still there. And just the team, there's just no high-end firepower. Roman Josi's their best player. They don't have an elite player on offense on that team. So Nashville's not going to make the playoffs. Nashville is a fade 100%. They're not going to overcome the rest of this division. All these teams have so many division games left, and that's what you have to look at. Minnesota wins a division game against Winnipeg last night. That's a big deal. Dallas beats Nashville last night. If you're going to get back into this, you need to win your 4-point games. St. Louis, Nashville, you're losing too many of them. So I'm fading those two teams as I look at the Central Division. Before we leave the Central, the Jets have lost 3 in a row. And I like their team. And I'm not worried about the coach. I'm not really worried about the players. My concern here is injuries. Here's the laundry list of injuries for the Winnipeg Jets. Nick Ehlers, Josh Morrissey, Blake Wheeler, Mason Appleton, Nate Schmidt, Logan Stanley. That's 3 top 6 defensemen and 3 top 9 forwards. That's tough to overcome. That's tough to overcome on a team that doesn't have a whole lot of depth. Jets prospects that have come up haven't exactly been great. Vinny Hinola has not found his game yet in the NHL. They keep trying to put him in. He's not an NHL defenseman yet. He might be one day. He is not yet. Morgan Barron's been a good ad, but you look at Saku Menelainen, he gets hurt. They bring him up from Manitoba. He gets injured in a game. They have guys that are playing at the World Juniors that actually might have gotten a call up right now, but they're playing for their respective countries. So they're very, very thin. For Winnipeg, over the next couple weeks, when they're trying to get through this stretch, that's going to be difficult. It's really not fair, but this is what they're going to have to do. Connor Hellebuck was the October to December Vezina winner. Wasn't great last night against Minnesota. That happens. You can have a bad game. He needs to be the Vezina again. He needs to be one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League in order to overcome this. Because Dallas is not slowing down. Dallas is winning games. They're really good. Minnesota, Marc-Andre Fleury is healthy. They're a healthy group in Minnesota. Frederick Goodrow's found his game. Kirill Kaprizov, Zuccarello is the fountain of youth. His ability to find players cross ice. They got a physical brand in Minnesota. They got skill. They're a good team. And they got a really smart head coach. Connor Hellebuck's going to have to steal some games for the Winnipeg Jets. When you go into your California trips, when you go to Western Canada, you need to win. Period. When you're playing the Calgary Flames, it can't be a dogfight anymore. You need to win these games. Calgary's no fucking good. Edmonton's not a very good team. They got the best player in the world, and you could argue the second best player in the world, but that's it. Vancouver stinks. San Jose's no good. So you need to, for Winnipeg, their saving grace is the rest of the Western Conference isn't that good. East, There are more good than crap. In the West, there are crap everywhere. State to state, you'll find crap. Crap. So for Winnipeg, take advantage of your games. You're going to lose to Minnesota if you're this depleted. Going to happen. Take it on the chin. Play your next game. I know they got Edmonton Saturday night because it's New Year's Eve and my sister's going to the games. That's why I know that. Which, by the way, have fun, Tally, in Edmonton. It's cold as hell and sketchy city, but I love you. Good luck out there. They got the Canucks on Thursday. You got to win that game. Win. For the Jets, you just need to look at your schedule and figure out the games that you got to win. When you're that injured, that's how I would approach it. You're not saying this. You're not the coach. You're like, oh, this is a must-win game every night. But if you're a depleted team, there's some nights you're just not going to win. You're not going to beat Minnesota as a team that's so depleted. But they got the Flames over the next little while. They got Canucks. They got Oilers. 2 of those 3 got to be wins. Got to be wins. So I'm not overly concerned about Winnipeg yet because I think it's the schedule of the West that can benefit them and keep them afloat. Now, if they're this banged up and say they're going into a playoff series against the Minnesota Wild starting tomorrow night, they'd lose it. And they might lose it anyway because I think Minnesota's only getting better. But Winnipeg has the option to try to get better at the trade deadline as well, and I do think they have a really good team when healthy. Another fade team for me. We'll do all the fades and I'll get to the teams that I would ride on in the second half. Florida Panthers. I watched the Florida Panthers live last week in the beautiful Sunshine State playing against my New Jersey Devils. And Florida had a great 40 minutes and then laid a complete egg in the third period. Didn't come out to play, didn't have any energy. Matthew Tkachuk didn't have a great game, I'll admit. He's my favorite player. But he's been really good for Florida this year. And it's funny because they are horrible, yet they won the Huberdeau for Tkachuk trade. But Florida has so many weaknesses. Their back end is beat to hell. And they don't have a whole lot of depth. Mark Stahl's playing over 22 minutes a night. Mark Stahl can't play 20 minutes a night, let alone 22. Mark Stahl's an old man. He's not what he used to be. He's playing that many minutes. I love Brandon Montour. I love Aaron Ekblad. But, it's so evident that Florida's missing Radko Gudas right now. He's a big miss for them. They're playing Matt Kierstead, and their defense stinks. Their goaltending is not working. And the Paul Maurice hire hasn't been a good one. I mentioned at the beginning of the year, they're trying to play a more bruising style. They're a run and gun last year. They're trying to slow the game down. They're not playing, run and gun hockey because, quite frankly, they don't have the horses to do it anymore. But it's a little too pragmatic. It's a little too structure. And you have bad defense goal. You're trying to push to find goals. Florida is not going to make the play. This is really a disaster situation for them. The Paul Maurice hire didn't work out. You have no first-round pick for the next 3 years. And, Bill Zito was brought in. He's trying everything he can to win a Stanley Cup. And this team's going to miss the playoffs. And quite frankly, they might miss the playoffs, and they're not going to have a pick. They might finish behind Buffalo. They might finish behind Montreal in the standings. That's not the way you want your year to go. That's not the way you saw this year going. So, just a real tough stretch. A real tough stretch for this team. And my final fade, the Detroit Red Wings. Detroit was in the mix for the first half of the year. They had found their game. They had a lot of early success, but I think that is going to wane here. They got some good players. They got a lot of high-end talent. but it's a development year. Derek Lalonde's in his first year as a head coach. I think Buffalo is going to finish ahead of the Detroit Red Wings. I like Buffalo. They're not going to make the playoffs, but Tage Thompson will get them there. They're going to play their young kids. I think Buffalo can do it. I think Buffalo will finish ahead of Detroit. Detroit will fade a bit. It's not a terrible thing for them to get another good draft pick. See what you can do there. But that's where I see it going for Detroit. I don't see them making the playoffs. My ride teams. Despite the fact that this team has lost 7 of their last 8, and the sky is falling on this team, I see now national media people starting to talk about this team because now they're losing so they can dump on them. I'm talking about you, Overdrive, and Brian Hayes. That is, and New Jersey. I'm riding New Jersey in the second half. Yes, they've gone through a tough stretch as of late, but they played a lot of good teams. They're playing a lot of hockey in a short period of time. And I think the Devils will be okay. I watched them last week. They're a fast bunch. Their goaltending is a little unstable because you don't know what you're going to get. But I think Vitek Vanacek's been really good for the Devils this year. To me, with their speed, with the exuberance that this team has, this will tell you a lot about Lindy Ruff this year for New Jersey, and I think they'll be okay. You're in that Metro division that's tougher than the Atlantic. I think the Metro is the toughest division in the NHL because there's just a lot of good teams in it. There's a lot of teams that should make the playoffs, and not all of them are. But Jack Hughes is clearly, to me, he's taken a step. He looks like a different player. Nico Hischier, I've touched on before. He's on a bit of a goal drought. I think he'll find it. He's a smart hockey player. He is not afraid to get to that front of the net, as I pointed out, and fight for position down there. Dougie Hamilton's playing like one of the best defensemen in the NHL this season. They got guys that I'll never love. Damon Severson's been on New Jersey seemingly forever. I wish he wasn't. I wish he could make an upgrade on that. But I think New Jersey will do it. They'll stay afloat. They'll be fine. I like the cut of the jib of their team. I like to see them add a little more size. Miles Wood is really the only forward that brings something in that department. Nathan Bastian is another guy when healthy that can come in and do that. But I think New Jersey, they get a break. It's good for them. They're playing a lot of hockey. They got the Bruins tonight, who they just played last Friday, pardon me. But I think New Jersey will rebound, and they will, after a great start, still make the playoffs. And I would ride them going into the second half. Second team for me, Seattle Kraken. Release the Kraken. And this ride or fade's not based on winning a Stanley Cup. I do think the Kraken will make the playoffs, and I do think the Devils will make the playoffs. The Kraken will make the playoffs in some part because of their division, and also because they're a good team. The Seattle Kraken have been a team that's found it all year. Matty Beniers has come out of the University of Michigan, and he can play in the NHL right away. Looks great. Burakovsky's been a fantastic ad for that team. Goaltending with Martin Jones. Who knew he could find his game the way he's been playing? Keep playing him. Stop playing Philip Grubauer so much, who's been god-awful. Yes, you're paying Grubauer a ton of money. It's about making the playoffs. Fuck Philip Grubauer. Play Martin Jones. He's your number one goalie right now anyway. They got a mix of guys that can just score goals. Jared McCann's going to have a career year when it comes to goal scoring. Yanni Gourde is healthy for this team after missing most of last season. Seattle, they believe. They got a mentality about that team. I think they're well coached. And again, they get to play San Jose a lot. They get to play the Anaheim Ducks a bunch. You get to play the Vancouver Canucks, Calgary Flames. The Kraken are better than those teams. And when you're in a division with those teams, you get to play them more than the rest of the league, and that is to your benefit. The Kraken will have a good year. Jared McCann will have a career high in goals, career high in goal scoring. So the Kraken are an easy one for me to ride because I think just the schedule alone, and there will be a Western Canadian NHL team that has a great second half. It's bound to have. Vancouver wins last night. They beat San Jose. I'm not buying into Vancouver. They have too much upheaval. Bo Horvat continues to impress. He's got 25 goals on the season, which is second in the NHL, which is incredible. Great for him on a contract year. Keeps putting that price up for the next team that acquires him. But I don't know. I don't see them getting any much better. Thatcher Demko is out till mid-January at the earliest. They got COVID problems now. They're not finding it. Calgary, I will refuse to believe in. They're still the worst watch in the NHL. They lost to Edmonton last night, who we'll touch on in a second. I can't buy into Calgary because I see them beat crap teams in the West, and that's again their benefit, their division. 3 teams from this division will have to make the playoffs. That's a fact. But I look at it, Vegas is going to make the playoffs for me. They played 37 games. That's one more than the Calgary Flames, and they have 10 more points. LA has played 38 games. They have 46 points. That is 7 more than the Calgary Flames. So Calgary has 2 games in hand. But games in hand are only worth anything if you make them worth your while. I think Vegas and I think Los Angeles will get to the playoffs. That leaves Seattle and Edmonton. Seattle is tied with Edmonton in points currently, and Calgary's only a point back of Edmonton. But Seattle has 4 games in hand on both those teams. I give Edmonton a better chance of being a potential wild card or sneaking in because of the Connor McDavid factor. But maybe as I look at it, I think Dallas makes the playoffs for sure. Minnesota, I believe. Well, I can't see Colorado missing the playoffs. I refuse to believe that. So will Winnipeg potentially miss? Will they fall out? So you have Dallas, Minnesota, Colorado, Winnipeg make the playoffs, and then in Edmonton squeak in as a wild card, potentially. I mean, for the Western Canadian teams, my only ride that I have for them is Connor McDavid scoring 60 goals. I don't buy into the team yet. They beat Calgary last night. Bully for you. Calgary stinks. But Connor McDavid will score 60 goals. He's got 31 already in 36 games. And this isn't just selfish Connor McDavid hockey. He's doing everything for this team because they're getting no depth. Nugent Hopkins, Zach Hyman, Connor McDavid, and Leon Draisaitl are doing everything for this team offensively. Jack Campbell's been a disaster signing. You can't play him right now. Stuart Skinner's their number 1 goaltender. I don't know. But I would ride Connor McDavid scoring 60 goals because he's got 31 on the season already. 6 better than any other player in the NHL. But I'm riding the Kraken. I'm also riding the Los Angeles Kings. Phoenix Copley was recalled when they sent Calvin. Remember, they put Calvin Peterson to sign to an extension this past offseason on waivers. He cleared. He makes $5 million a year. He's playing for the Ontario Reign. Not a great situation. But Phoenix Copley, since being recalled, is 7-1 in his 8 starts. He's been their number 1 goaltender. He beat the Vegas Golden Knights last night. He's taken starts away from Jonathan Quick, and Calvin Peterson's going to remain in the American Hockey League because Phoenix Copley's taken the net and ran with it. He was formerly with the Washington Capitals. He played a little bit for them as a backup goaltender. Then he played in the American League down there in Hershey with Zach Fucale for a while. And now he gets another crack, and he's taken advantage. He's looked impressive. So, and a lot of these Western teams, they're patchwork. The Kraken, LA. There's no structure to them. There's nothing that you're like, okay, I feel so good about them. I feel secure in them now. None of that. None of that yet, anyway. We'll see if they can hold it together, but we shall see. My final ride team is the team I'm least confident about, but I'm sticking by them. And I will say they started out well last night, so they got my confidence going a little bit. And that team is the New York Islanders. The Islanders had a great start, and then it just ended. And then nothing came of it. They lost a bunch, and now they've been finding themselves. They are currently 6th in the Metropolitan Division, a point back of the New York Rangers, only a point back of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and only 2 points back of the Washington Capitals for 4th in said division. It's a very tight division. They destroyed the Pittsburgh Penguins last night 5-1. And I do think Pittsburgh's a better team than the Islanders through the regular season at the very least. But the Islanders missed last year, and they still have something about them that makes me say, you know what? They will find their way into the playoffs. Noah Dobson's having a great season. The kid from PEI. He's playing his best hockey of his young career. I think he'll get 15 goals this season at the very least. They still have Anders Lee. They still have Brock Nelson. They've had some injuries with the bottom of their lineup, but Hudson Fasching, who got a call-up, is starting to produce for them, who's bounced around from Buffalo to St. Louis, and now he's a New York Islander. He's playing in Bridgeport. He's got 3 goals on the season. I love their defense. Scott Mayfield, Dobson, Romanov, Adam Pelech. So I like their back end. They got solid goaltending. I'm banking on just their team. There's no individual that will make blow you away. But Sorokin's an excellent goaltender. He's one of the best in the NHL statistically. Josh Bailey's a gamer. Barzal had 2 goals last night. I expect him to get going here. Dobson, as I mentioned, has been great. Brock Nelson, JG Pageau's been a little snake bit. There's just something about this team. I'm not giving up on them yet. I refuse to. Barzal this year has 7 goals. He's 28, 29, 30. He's almost a point per game. He's only got 7 goals, which is quiet, obviously really quiet. He didn't score a goal until at least 10 games into the season. He gets 2 last night. It's a confidence builder against a really good team. He's due for a big second half when it comes to goal scoring and when it comes to points. And it might be on the coaching staff. Barry Trotz is gone to open up the game a little bit. Let Matt Barzal cook, if you will. Let him play with the skill position players. Anthony Beauvillier is a player he's only got 16 points in 33 games. He should have more than that. He's a better player than that, just night in, night out. Josh Bailey has 15. Again, he needs to. He's starting to. He had 2 points last night. He's only got 6 goals on the season himself. So they weren't scoring a lot of goals. JG Pageau has 7 on the season, which actually is a decent pace for him. Aatu Ratti has been called up from the American League. The Finnish, he played in the World Juniors last year. Brock Nelson's got 15. He's actually having a really good season. But they weren't scoring a lot of goals. They're due to start scoring some goals now. They're due to start finding the back of the net. And I think they will. They just got a really, really strong team there. No individual is out of this world. Matt Barzal's a really good player. But you wouldn't say he's better than, Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner or Sidney Crosby. But they have a great team structure that I think can get them over the hump in that division. I'm riding with the Islanders to have a great second half and make the playoffs. So my fades: St. Louis, Detroit, Florida, and the Nashville Predators. My rides are the New Jersey Devils, New York Islanders, Los Angeles Kings, Seattle Kraken, and Connor McDavid scoring at least 60 goals. And you can still get plus money betting on Connor McDavid to score 60 goals. And I would advise anybody that likes to gamble to do that, because I think if he keeps scoring at the pace he is, that's going to be a minus something before you know it. It sounds crazy, but it will be, because it's Connor McDavid. He's the best player in the world. When you ever see Bo Horvat score a goal, seemingly the same night Connor McDavid gets 1 or 2 goals, he gets a power play game-winning goal last night against the Calgary Flames. And also he took a hit from Weegar on the play to get on the power play and then score the goal. Impressive stuff for Connor McDavid. Now, we got some breaking news here. It's just announced from Ron Rivera, who's the head coach of the Washington football team, that Carson Wentz will get the start for matchup against the Cleveland Browns this weekend, replacing Taylor Heineke. So the Green Lizard is back to the bench, and Carson Wentz will start. The Commanders have the last spot in the NFC playoffs right now. They have the seventh seed if it ended today. With 2 games remaining, they got the Cleveland Browns, and then they play the Dallas Cowboys. They have a massive game this weekend where Cleveland's playing for nothing, but they could be a massive spoiler to the Commanders, because you still got the Green Bay Packers in the mix. You still have the Seattle Seahawks in the mix, who are at 7-8. Some teams are still in the lurch. I think this is a wrong decision. I think the team likes Taylor Heineke a hell of a lot more than they like Carson Wentz. I get Ron Rivera probably believes that he's coaching for his job, and maybe Carson Wentz is a little bit better of a quarterback. I still think Ron Rivera could lose his job with a new owner this offseason if they make the playoffs and lose in the wild card game, the first game. I still think that's a possibility. But nevertheless, Carson Wentz will get the start this weekend per Ron Rivera. I mean, Washington controls their destiny. You beat Cleveland, you beat Dallas, you're in the playoffs. You'll likely be the 7th seed, because I think the Giants they're playing Indianapolis this weekend. I think the Giants will win that game. They'll make the playoffs. And if the Commies can do it, you're likely going to get a Minnesota or potentially San Francisco. And I would prefer to play, obviously I prefer to play Minnesota. If I'm the Washington football team, or if I'm any team that's going to get the 7th seed, I am rooting for the Minnesota Vikings to win out. Because as you know, they'd be 14-3 and it'd be an impressive season. But I look at that team in San Francisco and I want no parts of that team in the playoffs. None. I'll take my chances against Kirk D. Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings, who play in all these one-score games, and I'll bank on myself breaking their trend than just upending a seemingly a bullet train in San Francisco. But some big games this weekend. Packers, Vikings, Jets, Seahawks, Patriots, Dolphins this weekend. Ravens, Steelers on Sunday Night Football. Bengals, Bills, Monday Night Football. So lots of fun stuff. We're going to talk some NFL, Matt Wright and I, tomorrow morning. I'll start around 10 o'clock. He'll be on around 11. So we'll get into a number of different NFL topics. We'll talk World Juniors, college football, all that fun stuff. And then obviously Big Money Friday, I will be doing a show that day as well. We'll look at everything when it comes to the NFL weekend, when it comes to gambling. So that's what's on tap tomorrow. Well, I hope you guys have a great day. I will be attending the World Junior game tonight with my two BFFs, Dawson and Seamus. Looking forward to catching up with them. So mazel tov to that. So that should be fun this evening. But enjoy Team Canada's game. We'll recap it tomorrow. Enjoy the U.S. Slovakia and everything else you got going on this Wednesday. So ciao for now. Talk to you tomorrow. This has been To The Point.